Every afternoon, at the same spot on the dirt road, someone would whistle at me without showing up. When I finally decided to answer, the person came out of the bushes, and it wasn't who I imagined. I taught at a municipal school after the monoliths of Quixadá, deep in the backlands. I left in the late afternoon when the sky turned red and the road dust looked like smoke. I rode a simple motorcycle, my bag strapped to the rack with an inner tube. The path had a curve with a huge stone on one side, and on the other, a barbed wire fence. That was where I first heard it. A short whistle, then another, in the same rhythm. I looked around. Only cactus, mandacaru, and shadow. The second time I passed, more alert. No cars, no animals. Just the repeated whistle. In the same beat, like calling a dog. I speed up. On the third day, the whistle came with a snap on the wire, like someone had touched it. I stopped a few meters ahead, heart pounding in my throat, and walked back slowly. The wind rustled the dry brush, sounding like plastic scraping the ground. I called out, "Hey!" The brush replied with cicadas. No people. I went back to my bike and left with the feeling that someone was playing with me. A week later, a colleague mentioned that in the area they've been marking teachers' vehicles to rob on their way back. They tie ribbons, put a pebble on the tire, things like that. Stay sharp. That same afternoon, I reached the curve of the whistle and something hit my helmet. A pebble. I resisted the urge to look back and went straight to the nearest gas station. When I arrived, the attendant looked at my plate and said, "There's a wire seal stuck on the edge. Did someone put that there?" We removed it. It was a thin wire, neatly twisted. Easy to ease. I froze. The next day, I passed the curve with my phone recording audio in my pocket. The whistle came again, only closer. I didn't stop. When I got home, I pressed play. Amid the noise of the engine and the wind, you could hear 2 footsteps, a short breath, and the wire vibrating. I showed it to my brother, who always laughed at my paranoia. For the first time, he went serious. "Let's go together tomorrow." We both went, each on a bike. We agreed on a gesture if I heard it. At the curve, the monoliths cast shadows over the wire posts. The whistle came. I made the gesture. My brother pulled a strong flashlight from his pocket and aimed it at the bushes. At that moment, a figure jumped from the other side of the fence. A skinny man, faded cap, ripped Fortaleza shirt, barefoot. He ran inside the fence, parallel to the road, until he disappeared into a narrow path. "You saw that?" I shouted. My brother chased for about 10 meters and came back. Fresh tracks and cloth tied on the wire to stop the noise when pressed. We went to the police station. We pass by sometimes the thieves, sometimes a stalker. Don't stop there anymore. The officer wrote in his logbook without looking much. I thanked him and left with that mix of anger and fear. I decided to change my route, take the highway CE even with more expensive fuel. 3 weeks without a whistle. On a Friday, the principal asked me to cover an extra class. I left later than usual. I was calm, safe with the new route. But near a dry dam, a tire blew. I stopped in a sandy pull-off, turned off the bike and stayed in the dark. Only the moon and the sound of crickets. I took off my backpack, grabbed the jack, and as I kneeled, I heard it. Whistle. The same. 1, 2. Same rhythm. It came from behind the pile of rocks. This time, I didn't shake. I stood with the jack in my hand and shouted, "I've seen your face. I already went to the police." Silence. Just wind. I stepped back 2 times, eyes fixed on the pile. The whistle came again, weaker, like someone holding his breath. And then he appeared. Not the same man. A boy, about 13, sunburned skin, green cap, broken flip-flops. He raised his hands, let it drop what he carried. A bag with empty bottles. "Mister, don't hit me. I only fetch water. I whistle so you know there are animals." "What animals?" "Him, the one with the flashlight. He gets mad if we pass here without asking." He pointed to the dark behind the rock. I turned. A strong light flashed in my face, blinding me. I heard footsteps and a metallic click, like a knife snapping open. "Leave, teacher. Turn off that bike and hand over your phone." The boy ran. I froze. The voice repeated. Closer. The light shook, but it wasn't alone. I heard sharp breaths, more than one man. I raised my hands. "I have no money, only notebooks and books." The light came so close, I saw the dust dancing. I took a deep breath and said, "The police already know about the whistle. I've got people with me. If I don't send a message in 5 minutes, they'll come." A lie. But I said it firm. For a second, only the sound of the LED lamp and the wind. Then the light lowered. Footsteps retreated. A second man muttered, "Leave that one." The light vanished. Silence returned, with crickets and water far away. I started the bike with trembling hands and rode on the flat rim until I reached a lit house by the road. I explained quickly. They told me to come in. The owner shut the door and called a neighbor from the municipal guard. No one came. I stayed until dawn. The next day, I went to a tire shop, changed the tube, and bought a repair spray. I changed my class schedule, started leaving in the morning and returning before sunset. I never used that road again. Until, a month later, stopping at a traffic light downtown, I saw a folded paper stuck under my windshield wiper. I opened it. 2 lines. Messy handwriting. "Today, you didn't answer the whistle. I don't like when you ignore me." I reported again. Nothing happened, except advice to not make it easy. I changed bike, route, and routine. The whistle never came again. But sometimes, stopped at a light, the memory pinches me. If a cricket changes rhythm, my whole body prepares to run. And every so often, I check the windshield wiper before starting the car. If you were with me on that road, would you have answered the whistle or speed it up? Comment "whistle" and send your backland story. I'll read it in the next video. I found a sisal string hanging inside the cistern and realized someone had been using our water at night. The following week, I heard breathing down there. I moved into a simple house in Tauá, in Inhamuns. Sandy backyard, a small umbu tree, and the cistern covered with a cement lid. I work online, self-employed, and came to help my mother who had high blood pressure. In the first dry month, I noticed marks around the cistern, as if something had been dragged. I thought it was an animal. I placed 2 stones on top of the lid just to signal if someone opened it. In the morning, one was on the ground. The following week, my mother complained the water had a taste of pebble. I lowered the bucket, pulled it up, and saw a thick sisal fiber hitting the cistern wall. I caught it on the bucket's handle and pulled. It was an improvised rope with knots every 30 centimeters. At the end, a gourd was spied. Someone had been going down there at night to bathe or drink. I closed the lid and sat in the umbu tree's shade listening to the earth crackle in the heat. My chest tightened with a strange mix of pity and fear. I told the neighbor across the street, Mr. Raimundo, a thin old man with a battery radio always on his shoulder. He said that during droughts, wanderers followed fences looking for water. Some are good, some are bad. The bad ones coming without asking.
He advised me to tie wire inside, keeping the lid from opening. I did. At night, the wind whistled through the cracks and the street dogs barked long. In the early morning, I woke to the sound of the lid scraping cement. The rope trembled. I got up, grabbed the flashlight, and reached the cistern's mouth slowly. The beam fell on nothing but dust on the water and a faraway echo of breathing. "Is someone there?" I asked it. The echo mocked back, "Is someone there?" I froze, feeling the cold smell of water, and chose not to open. I banged the flashlight against the rim hard. The noise scared off whoever was there, because the rope slackened. I spent the night in the hammock, ears awake. The next day, I bought an iron grate and bolted it under the lid. I put a lock inside. Whoever wanted in would have to break it. In the afternoon, I found a cheap doll, the kind sold at Weirs, leaning against the good tree trunk. It was clean, with a new ribbon. My mother found a note in handwriting, not childish. "Thank you." The silence between us weighed. It wasn't just thirst. Someone was trying to show they belonged. On the third night, around 2 a.m., Mr. Raimundo's radio began to hiss across the street. I got up and went to the window. I saw a shadow on the wall, a figure slowly turning his head toward me. Cap, light shirt, a bag hanging. He raised his arm and showed keys, quick flashes in the dark, as if to say, "I can get in if I want." My hand froze on the window. The man crouched, pulled something from his pocket, and left it on the ground at the gate. He left through the alley, the sound of dragging sandals. I waited for daylight. It was a small knife, blue handle, bent tip, and the cistern lock open. We went to the military police and reported it. "Must be someone local, so we'll pass by at night," they said. Meanwhile, routine became vigil. I worked, dozed, and every night at the same hour heard the sand in the yard shift like someone sweeping with their feet. I began recording audio. In the spectrum, you could see regular peaks, tires passing far on the CE 176, and over it, sharp breaths that stopped when I turned the light on. I left a bucket of water outside with a note, "Drink here." It was gone in 10 minutes. On Saturday, I decided to go down the cistern with my own rope and check if they had broken anything. I tied it to my waist, flashlight in my mouth, and descended slowly, feeling the air turn cold and damp. The beam caught the wet wall and two things: a handprint in mud at my chest's height and a small hole between stones, like an armadillo tunnel, venting icy air. Suddenly, the scrape of the lid above. The flashlight nearly slipped from my mouth. "Who's there?" I shouted, spitting metal. Silence. The lid scraped again. I gripped the rope and climbed. The lid dragged once more, then stopped. I climbed fast, knees banging stone. When I got up, the lid was in place, but outside, two heavy stones sat on top, exactly as I had left them the first week. Someone was copying my signals. That night, Mr. Raimundo called me at the gate. "Let's keep vigil together." He brought a wooden stool, coffee in a bottle, and the radio low. Around 2:20, we heard footsteps in the alley, not light ones. The shadow stopped at the wall's corner, stood still, then came to the gate. The latch shook twice, testing, and someone spoke low. "We are family." My body froze. The neighbor raised the radio and turned it up a bit. The voice continued, "Open, and I'll leave the knife. The lock is already opening without sound." Mr. Raimundo replied without fear, "The water has an owner. If you want to drink, go to the church. They'll register you. The shadow leaned his head against the gate like sniffing the yard. Then it laughed. I'm the one who helps the church, and left. Sunday morning, we found scratch marks on the wooden gate and a plastic bottle cut into a scoop. On Monday, a pickup from City Hall arrived. 2 people from social services saying they were mapping families without water. They promised water truck deliveries. That night, no footsteps. We slept. On Wednesday, my mother swept the yard and found under the living room hammock the fair doll, now with a new blue ribbon. No one had entered through windows or doors, only if someone jumped the wall by day and forced entry with a tool. We reinforced the locks, hired a mason to raise the wall with glass shards. Since then, it stopped. But if you ask me if it ended, I'll answer no. At nightfall, when light fades and cicadas tighten their song, I still hear the cistern's cold breath in the yard center. There's a crack where the wind hits and makes the voice return. Sometimes, in the kitchen, making coffee, I swear I hear the lid scraping by itself. Just a little. Just to remind me that on the other side of the wall, thirst doesn't sleep. If your water were the only one on the street, would you put a lock or leave a bucket at the gate? Comment thirst and tell your story. I might read it in the next video.
On the pilgrimage to Caninde, a man began walking at my pace, day and night. When I purposely took the wrong path, he took the wrong one too. I had promised St. Francis I would walk to Caninde if my aunt's surgery went well. I joined a group from my town and we went along the BR highway, detouring onto old roads when possible, sleeping in schools and loaned sheds. On the second day, near a hamlet with a small shop and a white little church, I saw a man in a green cap, canvas backpack, and flip-flops. He didn't wear the group ribbon or the chains of promise around his neck, only a rosary in his hand. He slipped into our pace without introducing himself. I ignored him. A pilgrimage has this thing. We mix prayers with logistics. There's a time for water, for sunscreen, for snacks. The elders ride in the support car when they're tired. The man in the cap always stood where I could catch him out of the corner of my eye, on my diagonal, 2 steps behind. Late afternoon, when we stopped at a school, I sat to massage my feet. He walked by slowly, looked at my votive plaques, embroidered with my aunt's name, and smiled. Beautiful handwriting. I didn't respond. At night, on the mat, I heard someone passing in the corridor, sandals scraping. When I opened my eyes, the green cap split the shadow with the streetlight in the window. He stopped, then left. On the third day, it drizzled. The road became a strip of mud and trucks splashed water. The man in the cap didn't get wet. He walked along the inside slope near the harsh scrub where little birds hopped with a plastic-like rustle. When we stopped to pray, he prayed too, in silence. I told the group coordinator, who asked him to introduce himself. He said his name was Gyro, eyes down, a voice that didn't hang anywhere. I'm paying a vow. Will you go with us? I will. And he stayed. I started to test him. I quickened my pace. He quickened his. I fell behind. He fell behind. I pretended to go relieve myself in the brush, handed my backpack to a friend, and took another path, coming out past a fence. He appeared on the other side, as if he had calculated my shortcut. When I stopped at a roadside bar, he sat 2 chairs back and ordered the same pastel I did, without saying the same as hers, just 1 pastel. The bar owner answered, the last one is hers, and he smiled, revealing a gold tooth. He didn't eat. He watched me eat. My body started to respond like on alert. Hand always near the side of my backpack, eyes on the support car, heart in a strange rhythm. On a rocky climb, I stumbled and scraped my knee. The man in the cap was the first to arrive. He held out a hand, up. I refused. He stood too close. I smelled stored clothing. The coordinator whistled the group, asked for distance, and he took 3 steps back, obedient like a sad dog. He wasn't a child. He wasn't old. He wasn't sick. He was a man trained not to cross the line in front of others. At night, we stayed in a warehouse with an iron gate. The support car slept outside. 2 volunteer women took turns at the door. At 3 a.m, I woke hot and needing the bathroom. I went to the makeshift one outside with a flashlight. On the way, I noticed 3 chalk marks on the wall outside the warehouse at waist height. Had I seen that sign somewhere else? At the school the day before on the doorframe. At the shop that morning on the paint-scarred counter. 3 horizontal marks, like someone's tallying symbol. I went back into the warehouse with my heart listening for footsteps. The green cap was standing, leaning on the gate, looking at the empty street. On the 4th day, the coordinator split the group into 2 lines, and I went to the other one, far from him. Gyro still ended up beside me. I took the wrong way on purpose when we passed an old fork, where the old road entered a homestead, and the new one followed the CE. I said loudly I'd take the new one because of the shade from the trees, and then I stepped onto the old. The group, who knows my tricks, laughed and shouted for me to come back. I kept going, looped behind a corral, and came out ahead of them on the CE, feeling I'd fooled them. When I came down the embankment, he was waiting for me. The green cap first, the smile after. There's shade here, too. It got serious when at a gas station, I went to the bathroom and left my backpack with my friend. I came back, and my votive ribbon, the one with my name and my aunt's, was fastened to my backpack zipper, but turned inside out. No one in the group does that. I took the ribbon and turned it back. When I looked at the street, he was sitting on the curb, looking elsewhere, but with his whole attention on me. We always know. On the 5th day, already near Caninde, there's a run of sparse houses, plaster stains at the door, selling water and candles. I did everything to stay surrounded. Even so, on the final stretch, the group scatters. Some speed up to arrive, some stop to cry. It's normal. I blinked and I was alone, 100 meters from the others. I felt his steps coming, his shao crossing mine. I squeezed the rosary in my hand. "Do you know my name?" I asked without looking. He smiled before answering. "You're Anna, Aunt Maria's niece." I froze. "It's on the ribbon," he finished. "Why do you walk at my pace?" "Because your footprint's neatly in the mud. I can step inside. What do you want?" He walked a bit and tossed it out, like casting a fishing line. "I want to see a miracle up close." I looked at the sanctuary still in the distance, the noise of pilgrims, a megaphone calling people to the blessing. He finished. "When you go in, everyone forgets the road. I don't." And he took 1 step to the side, enough for us to cross the finish line without touching. We arrived. The square was crammed, people on their knees, fireworks, the smell of candles. I entered the sanctuary crying with anger and relief. I asked for myself, for my aunt, for those who walk alone. When I came out, I looked for the green cap in the crowd. I didn't find him. I went to the shelter house to grab my backpack. On the side of the door, 3 chalk marks. On my backpack zipper again, the votive ribbon turned inside out. The message was clear. He didn't need to touch me to carry me. I went back with the group by bus, just once. If I fulfill another vow, I'll go by day, with my name covered. And when someone falls into my pace, without saying good morning, I'll change my step right away.
Have you ever walked a pilgrimage or a highway and someone glued themselves to your pace? Comment rhythm and tell me. Your story might open the next episode.